So I want to welcome everybody tonight. Welcome to our November 4th. Do you believe it? Salt Talks. Um, I know when I was planning this over the summer, trying to plan all the topics, it seems like November was such a far away, and all of a sudden here it is, and we're right on the edge of all the holidays. And many I've heard over the years with being in Salt and around families, and even in my own experiences, just the struggles you have during the holidays. Not only do you have the regular daily stress of life, whether it be work and chores, and all the daily things that you come across during the week, your appointments and all that. But then when you get to the holidays, you have all that extra things we're preparing for, events. There's tons of events all the time, family events, get-togethers, and just the energy. The energy gets so high, um, and it just gets to be one of those times that can be really stressful. And of course, your stress will relate to your child, or your child can feel the energy around them. It gets becomes a situation where the a sensory overload happens, and then you got to figure out how you deal with, how do you prepare for this? How do you prepare a family for this? How, because you're going to be in group settings, you're going to be in, miscellaneous, anything from family group settings to social group settings. There's going to be lights, there's going to be, noises, music, there's all kinds of stuff going on. And, how do you prepare your child for that? Children of different ages, different disabilities respond different ways to different things. So, with all that said, we brought in Mary Helen, and I'll let her tell her a little bit more about herself, but she's with the Autism Connections. And she was very willing to do this presentation, which we've never done before. This is our first time hosting this, but I thought it was, hearing over the years, just hearing this situation over and over again about, how to deal with sensory overload. I thought she would be a good one to speak on this topic. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mary Helen. I'm going to let you tell yourself a little bit about yourself, and then you can go ahead into your presentation.
Perfect. Thank you, Patty. Well, I'm really excited to do this topic as well because we often at Autism Connections hear people talk about, I'm stressing about the holidays. I don't enjoy the holidays because they're so stressful and my family doesn't understand, or I don't know how to prepare my child, or, there are just too many things going on and I want my child to enjoy some things. Just on and on and on and on. So I'm really excited to talk about this tonight. For those of you who might not know who I am the CEO of Autism Connections. I've been here for 8 years in this role. And Autism Connections has been a part of the Cincinnati nonprofit community and the autism community for 54 years now. If Autism Connections does not ring a bell with you, prior to 2023, we were Autism Society Greater Cincinnati. So, we have a long history here in Southwest Ohio. Just to give you a little bit about what we do a little bit of everything. We do a lot of programming, social skills, support groups, as well as educational trainings for primarily teens and adults on the autism spectrum and their families. So lots of family support, and our biggest program that you all need to know about, if you don't know, is our autism helpline. We are the largest resource helpline in all of Southwest Ohio, with the ability to give you names of providers who can support your child, to, I always say, to dentists and hairdressers and about everything in between. So if you have an autism question, we might have an autism answer. So keep us in mind for that. So I'm going to share my screen here, and we're really going to talk tonight about how to prepare for this holiday season. Now, I think winter scenes are a little more pretty than Thanksgiving scenes for whatever reason. So in this presentation, you're going to see lots of winter scenes. That doesn't mean that we're not talking about that. We're only talking about Christmas or Hanukkah. We are talking about, all holidays here coming up. I mean, we really have, when you think about it, from, you know, Thanksgiving to Christmas to New Year's, then you have Hanukkah and you have Kwanzaa and you have like there are just a lot of holidays here in the next couple of months, and and they can be really really difficult for a lot of individuals and families, and understandably so, right? Patty said at the beginning, holidays are stressful. Just full stop. Holidays are stressful, right? You have, either you're visiting family or you're hosting family, and it seems like this time of year we get together with lots of people. We get together with our family for Thanksgiving, for Christmas, for Hanukkah. We get together with family or friends for New Year's. It's this flurry of activity that is condensed into like 5 or 6 weeks. And so that is, it stresses me out just to say that out loud, right? Um, so it's stressful in the first place, right? And if you're married or you have, or you have in-laws, and you just compounds it. So what we really want to do is talk about how to manage and mitigate some of the challenges that are present in this holiday season, because when you add autism or a neurodivergent child or a child with a disability of any sort, right? Quite frankly, there is an added layer of stress, right? So I really want to talk about that. I want to encourage you. I don't know where my chat box went to somewhere. Let me see if I can figure it out.
I can watch it for you. I'll let you know if there's any questions out there.
Okay, awesome. Please, if you have questions as I go along, please drop them in the chat. Patty, feel free to interrupt me, so that, because what I really want is to make sure that this presentation is what you need, right? And we're going to have plenty of time at the end to have conversation, to talk through some specific strategies if you want, to answer specific questions from you. So lots of time to do this. I could talk a long time on this, but I also really want to make sure that this is relevant to you. So I'm going to really try to give us plenty of time to have a conversation after I'm through the presentation. But again, if you hear me say something and you have a question or a thought or a something, put it in the chat and we'll deal with it right then. Right? So my goal tonight really is to equip you with some practical strategies to help reduce stress, to figure out how to maintain routine in a time of year that is really difficult to maintain any sort of routine, and to create, I hope, the opportunity for some joyful holiday experiences. I'm not saying that they'll be stress-free, but I'm hoping that we'll reduce some stress by coming up with some simple strategies for you to be able to work with your child and to work with your family. Because this is not all about your child figuring out how to conform. This really is as much about explaining to your family why you can't do 5 events in a week, right? I think about my own family, and my in-laws would do Thanksgiving, and then they would have the day after Thanksgiving, and then they would have the Saturday after Thanksgiving, and then we would get together for Sunday lunch. And by the time it was time to go back to work on Monday, I didn't want to see my in-laws for like months. And then I knew I had to do it just a few weeks later, right? And that was just one side of the family. So we really want to manage those expectations from our family members. All right. As we think about this, I want you all to start thinking about what your holiday stressors are. Here are some really common ones. And if you have others, please put them in the chat. So, with a lot of our holidays, our kids are off school. So their routines are disrupted, right? And if they're not in school or they are out of school already, their routine is still disrupted because every Thursday I do X, Y, and Z, right? Well, now Thanksgiving Thursday, that routine on Thursday totally changes. So disrupted routines, and we know that in in the neurodivergent community, in the autism community specifically, we really deal with the necessity of consistent routines. So when we change them, and it's not just one day we're changing, right? For the next 2 months, there's going to be a lot of disruption in routine. And that is a lot to handle, right? Another really common holiday stressor is sensory overload, right? How many of you go see the family? I don't care which part of the family, right? And it's the siblings and the cousins and the right, and it's wonderful, and it's loud, and it's crazy, right? And it doesn't take that many individuals to make it that. It takes just more individuals than what you're used to on a daily basis. So I think of family get togethers as this beautiful chaos. But the reality is that chaos is super stressful. And if we have an individual who wants to be involved, but the sounds are loud and it's lots of activity, and I don't know, you have the game on and there are kids playing games and there are all these things happening. It's really easy for anybody to go into sensory overload, right? It's a lot. And when we're not used to that, and when our kids are not used to that, that sensory overload becomes bigger and more difficult to manage, right? The third really big, and I'm not saying that there aren't more stressors, but I think the third really big stressor are the social demands on ourselves and our children, right? How many of you have, I want you to just think about, have some sort of expectation that either you host the family event, or you're expected to be at mom and dad's or your siblings or wherever that is at a certain hour because it's a family dinner and it's a family activity and you're going to spend afternoon and evening there, right? And when you're there, there is some expectation generally of being a part of the conversation, of the activity, of what is happening, right? So you take sensory overload and you take those social expectations, and wow, I don't know about you all, I get exhausted after those things, right? Um, so those demands, like, okay, I can carry on a conversation, but in my house with my parents and my siblings and the nieces and nephews, there are, I don't know, it feels like 100 conversations. It's probably 5 or 6 conversations happening at the same time. And everybody is trying to pull you into conversation. And you're supposed to be social, and you're supposed to smile, and you're supposed to have a good time, right? This is a really big challenge for our autistic kids when those social constructs are really not always quite as clear, right? We know that autistic children, autistic individuals, struggle with the social interactions. So now you put these social demands on it, and you add the impact of somebody not understanding or not being patient as they could be with our child or our children, and those social demands just become extremely overwhelming, right? So what can we do? So I have lots of tips here on what we can do. I'm going to go through a whole bunch of them. First, I want us to think about creating what I'm calling a predictability plan. This is kind of a maybe a funny name for it, but it really would love for families to create a schedule plan of what's happening, right? Put it on the calendar so that we know that Thursday for Thanksgiving, we are going to Nanny and Poppy's, wherever it is, right? At this time. And we're going to stay this long with some sort of expectation, right? Because if we just say, I love right on all of our cameras, you can just click that all day event and then you put it on there and then it's like from midnight to midnight, right? Wow, talk about not predictable. Like, you know, I want to know what time lunch is or what time I have to be there or right. So put it on the calendar, but put it somewhere that where everyone can see it. Don't just do that. Let's talk about it, right? Hey, in a couple of weeks, it's Thanksgiving. You know, on Thanksgiving, Matt, you're off, whatever it is, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, right? If you're talking about a school age child. And on Thursday, we're going to go have dinner or lunch or whatever it is at grandma and grandpa's. And we are going to leave the house right around noon. And the idea will be we'll stay till 4 or 5, right? Create that expectation and talk about it. You may want to also create a social story, quite frankly, right? Where are we going? Now, if it's a familiar place, this is probably easy to explain. But if it's somewhere that you don't go all, that your child or you as a family don't go all the time, you may want to be really clear where we're going and who we're seeing. Even if it is somewhere, let's say it's grandma and grandpa's, right? But your kids don't see the cousins all the time. You probably want to put that in the social story. You are going to see cousin Joe and cousin Steph and whoever those people are, right? If you have pictures of them, really great to show them pictures so that they can start identifying and solidifying who they're going to see, right? What is going to happen? You're going to want to do that with the foods you're going to eat, right? I don't know about you all, but I don't eat turkey every day, like at least not the big old roasted turkey that we do for Thanksgiving. So you might want to talk about the foods, right? The cranberry sauce, the yams, right? The whatever it is, particularly if it's not foods that you're typically cooking, right? You're gonna want to talk about that. And I'm going to talk in a little bit about what to do with food sensitivities, but either way, you have smells going on, right? So you want to let them know what they can expect for food, that you want to let them know who they can expect to be there. The more you do that, and the more in advance that you do that, the more prepared your child will be, right? So, in my opinion, it's even really healthy to put down, right, for the next 6 or 8 weeks, right? What are the activities that are abnormal in our general week or in our general month, right? So, here's Thanksgiving, here's Christmas. Maybe you do a holiday something with your family the second weekend in December, right? Because then you do something another weekend with your in laws, and then you do a family thing. This is all really good to show them all the places where the routine will change. The more we talk about it, the more we let them know what the routine changes are, the easier it is to adapt, right? You also want to, in your predictability plan, have a what I call a comfort kit, right? A comfort kit really is this is what let's pack something that we're going to take with us that are your knowns. So let's say your child has a stuffy that they love, right? And it's one of their comfort tools. Well, let's make sure we're packing that, right? I often say a little backpack is great, right? It's my go bag for a lot of things. It has, a couple of sensory toys. It has a stuffy. It might have a weighted blanket if your child is into that. It might have their preferred snacks, right? So that they know we've talked about this food, but here's some snacks you can have that we know you like. Don't assume that your family or friends will have those things. Bring it along, right? It also gives a sense of independence to your child with this is your bag. You can get into it whenever you need, right? You need a fidget, you go get one. It's your bag, you have your stuff, and let them be a part of packing it, right? And let them be a part of making some of those choices because that also helps with their comfort because then they know what's in there and they know what they can reach for, right? Okay, so now you have a plan. That's all well and good. As you all know, things go awry. This is the best laid plans, right? So you want ideally to communicate to family if you're going somewhere or family if you're staying even what some of your plan is for giving your child or yourself for that matter a sensory break, a little break. If you're going somewhere, ask them if they have a place, a quiet space. Maybe it's the guest bedroom where your child can go and retreat if they need to. Um, and not just a corner somewhere because a corner in the living room where they can play with their toys is still loud, right? Where can they go? A guest room. Maybe it's grandma and grandpa's room and they can sit on the bed for a little while, but have that plan in advance because then when you talk about it with your child, even as you're driving there, you can say, hey, if you get overwhelmed, you just need to let me know, or you know where grandma's room is, you can go in there and climb on the bed and you can take your backpack with you and you can, right? So that they know what they can do and so that you know what you can do if you see your child getting overwhelmed, right? Um, Best to have a place to go. I truly am in love with quiet rooms. I just think they're the best things ever. If you're hosting at your house, you want to designate a quiet room as well, right? That may well be the child's room, may not be, right? If they share that room with someone else, but you want to designate that and you want to let family know that this space is off limits, right? Because this needs to be a safe place your child can retreat to, right? You want to ahead of time practice asking for, have your child practice asking for breaks. Or somebody said earlier, Katie, you said that your boyfriend and you use a code word. I love that. I can't tell you how much, right? A code word that says that communicates to both of you, we need some space, right? So something like that is a great thing, right? Make sure your child knows they don't have to ask just anybody for a break, and they're not asking for permission to take a break. They're asking you to help them find a place to take a break, right? And you need to make it clear to your family. My child needs sensory breaks. Hey, we all get overwhelmed at times. Normalize this situation because every human being has gone to a holiday event and been overwhelmed at some point, right? So normalize this. My child needs this. You don't have to ask, you don't have to explain. You just say, my child needs some breaks. We're going to take one. The end, right? If you get pushback from family, honestly, this is really hard to do, but you got to hold your ground. You just really have to say, this is what my child needs, right? Um, if your child knows how to self-regulate, now this may be a complete ability to know and remove themselves from a situation. It may be that they need their stuffy or a fidget, or they need headphones or whatever it is. Encourage them to use those things. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I know a lot of kids who really dislike kids, teens, adults for that matter, autistic individuals who don't always love to put their headphones on in public because it feels like a stigma, right? It feels like if I put it on and all these other people, then somebody's going to say, "Oh, you're ignoring me," or whatever. And and I wish I could say, "Oh gosh, that you're overthinking it," but I hear people say it, right? So you can do a couple of things. Normalize it by saying, "If you need your headphones, I'll wear a pair." That sounds really crazy, but easy thing to do to normalize it for your child. Or if your child can tolerate things like loops, they're a great set of noise canceling, and they go in your ear. Now, your child may or may not be able to handle that. There are days where I wonder if, when I'm with my family, I don't know about you guys, where I'm like, I wonder if I could wear them. I have long enough hair, you wouldn't be able to see it, right? Can we do those kind of things to normalize it for our child? Also, and this is really, really important, respect your child's need to opt out of things, right? If you see your child getting overwhelmed, please, 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 I can't say this enough, know that your child is allowed to say, "I can't do this any longer. I need a break." Or if you're hanging out after dinner and you're just hanging there, it is perfectly okay to say to family, "You know what? My son's had enough. We have enjoyed our time, but we need to head out," right? Um, the the worst thing you can do, and this is really hard, the worst thing you can do is beg, is ask your child, I don't want to say beg, ask your child to hold it together a little longer, right? We all know the consequences of that. So, and again, this is your child, this is you, right? If you are done, you can say, "You know what, this has been lovely. My social battery is done. I'm gonna head out," right? And and don't allow yourself to feel guilty about that. It is okay to take care of yourself and your child, right? um this is also true if a child says, "Hey, I don't want to do this activity," right? In my family, the grandkids like to play Uno, and my husband, and so us kids play it too, right? My husband doesn't care to, right? He says, "No, not into card games, thank you." He'll sit on the couch. It's totally fine, right? We don't guilt him into it. We don't push him. And if any of my family would say, "Oh, come on, come on," I'd be like, "You know what? He made a choice. That's okay. He's allowed to do so." We should be allowed to make those choices, and our children should as well. So keep that in mind. All right. Am I going too fast for anybody? Are we good? Okay. I'm
You're
gonna keep
good.
going.
You're making some very good points.
All right. I'm going to keep going, but please, if you have questions, put them in the chat, and I'm happy to address them. All right. We started talking about some of this, communicating with family, right? Let your family know what your child needs and what is not helpful to your child, right? Truly, if you have the big family reunion get-togethers and your child cannot handle that, just say that to your family, "Hey, we either aren't going to make it because that really is too many people, or we're going to come, but we're only going to stay this long," whatever that is. "We're only going to stay an hour, or we're only going to stay for dinner," or, right, "We're not going to come at 4 o'clock. If dinner is at 6, we'll be there at 5:30, but then we're probably going to see how it goes and plan to leave no later than 8," right? Whatever that looks like, let your family know. And again, don't let them push you to, "Oh, but it would be so much fun if you." Sure, it would. but it's not fun for anybody if none of you are having a good time because your child is on sensory overload. Like, then nobody's having fun. So be clear about that. Don't be afraid to set clear boundaries. So again, I think of some families who like to meet multiple times over the holiday. You know what? Nobody says you have to do that, right? I don't know about you guys, but I know families, I know quite a few families who Christmas is stressful because they have to go to their parents' house and their in-laws' house, and then they host a breakfast, and then like it's 3, 4, 5 events. Who said you have to do that? Like, truly, right? If you can't handle all of that, if your child can't handle all of that, set some boundaries. Say, you know what? We can do one event. Maybe you let them choose what the event is. Which do you think is most important? Do you want us to come for Christmas Eve, or do you want us to come for the day after Christmas when, right? Um, I know grandparents who are like, oh, you'll come to my house for Christmas Eve, and then I'll come and watch the kids on open presents on Christmas morning to your house. You're allowed to say no. Like, give yourself permission to do that. If you are going to go to family for the holiday, let your family know what you need, whether that's food, whether that's activities, the quiet room, right? If your child does not like to be hugged, right? I know quite a few kids who do not like to be hugged, or do not like to be touched. Let your family know, right? And don't force your child to be hugged or to be picked up or to be whatever that is if they don't like it, right? That only exacerbates a situation. So, if, grandma wants to hug, but, your child is like, I'm going to wave, or I'm going to fist bump, or I'm going to, um, make that okay, right? Also, it's really important. I don't know how many families have the tradition of, but we always meet on Thanksgiving Day, Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, whatever it is, right? We always do. If that doesn't work for y'all, ask for flexibility. You know what? There is nothing wrong with saying this holiday season is so stressful. I would love it if we do just grandma and grandpa and us, just really small. Or I would love it if we do this in mid-January so that I can space out Thanksgiving and then another event, right? There's nothing wrong with saying that, right? Some families are very hung up on, we have to do it on the day, otherwise it doesn't matter. My response to it is always, you know what? Christmas doesn't end until I've done the last family get together. And so if that's January 21st, then woohoo, I had a whole month of Christmas. But it's been spaced out so we can handle it, right? And it's a better experience in the long run. So just think about those. Don't force yourself and your family to do more than what you actually can do in a comfortable, sensory, manageable space, right? Um, Model inclusive language, right? I don't know how many of you, when I think about this, I think about, well, the parent or the grandparent or the cousin or the aunt or uncle who says, well, they should just fill in the blank, right? Your child should just like relax. Yeah, because that's easy to do in a stressful situation, right? How come your child is throwing a temper tantrum? Oh no, that's a meltdown, right? How come they don't want to play with the other kids? Maybe they have sensory overload, right? So normalize that hang on, stick tight to things, because if you are not the advocate for your child, how will anybody know what they need? Right? And I hate to put this on parents. I always hate to put this on parents, but it is so important that if your child has difficulty advocating in those stressful situations, that you advocate for them, right? Let people know and stand your ground. It's better for everybody. All right. I mentioned mealtime a little while ago, and I want to come back to that now. Um, Meals around the holidays. Holy smokes. Every holiday, I do not care what one is, has a series of foods that go along with those holidays that frequently are not what we're typically eating on a consistent basis, right? I go back to the turkey. I might eat turkey sandwiches, but I'm not cooking, I'm not roasting a turkey, right? That is way too much work to do more than once a year. So, and I don't know about you all, but my family, we have yams and we have, cranberry sauce, and I'm not a big fan of either, right? So, but it's whatever, it's what we do, right? So let your child know about those foods. This is what they're going to see. Maybe they want to take a bite, but in a stressful situation, I'm going to say, if you introduce new foods to your family on a consistent basis, right, at home, and you say, hey, you got to take 2 bites of something, cool, great. I'm going to discourage that over the holidays, because with all that other stuff going on, this is not the time in my opinion, to force a child to try new things, right? Especially when are they going to have cranberry sauce again? Next year this time, right? Let your family know if you are going to be bringing foods, or if your child only eats certain things. You don't have to expect your family to make it for them, right? But let them know that this is what your child is going to eat and you're going to bring it. Because you certainly don't want a grandparent saying, and I think about this because I think a lot of grandparents say this, right? People of a certain age, we used to, you all know what I'm talking about, right? You're going to sit down and you're going to try some things, and right. And it's a good idea to learn new foods. And again, this is not the time to do that. But people who don't normally live in this space don't think this way. So, you know what? My child prefers chicken nuggets, or, cheese pizza. And so I am going to bring a personal cheese pizza, a little cheese or a couple of slices, and I'm going to warm them. And I just need you to know that, because this is how we make this meal pleasant for everyone, right? You also want, because I don't know about you all, but I feel like in the holidays, the mealtime routine is hugely different, right? I don't know about you all. I do not eat dinner at 4 o'clock. Just don't. I don't know why, but every family get together, dinner is at 4, right? I don't understand it, but your child isn't going to understand it either. If your child has a routine of, dinner is at 6, right? Then a 4 o'clock dinner may not work for them, right? You may have to talk about it. You may have to, for a few days, this is going to sound really crazy, but you may have to, for a few days, try to eat a little earlier. You know, remember, next week on Thursday, we're going to see grandma and grandpa, and we're going to have dinner at 4 o'clock. So tonight, we're going to try having dinner at a slightly different time. I'm not suggesting y'all have dinner at 4 o'clock for a week, right? But can you make it 5:30? Just to say, here's how routine feels different. And if that doesn't work, then you let your family know. It's great that y'all are going to have dinner at 4 o'clock. My child eats at 6. This is what we're going to do. And honestly, explain to your family that the child does not, if they do not want to, have to sit at the table while everybody eats. Like, why? Right? Um, so be aware of that, right? Sometimes it's actually better for your child to not eat at the same time if the routine is really different, right? I don't know about you, but when you have 20 people in a room and y'all are eating and, clanking your fork against the plate and everybody's talking, and no, families do not just talk to the people on either side of them, right? You're talking to the person down the table. So it's a loud sensory space. If that is going to be a trigger point for your child, why would you make them do it? Just make sure your family is aware. This is, and don't make excuses for it. This is what we're doing so we can be a part of this event, of this activity, right? If you make my child sit here for an hour, guess what? We're going to be out of here in 30 minutes because they're not going to handle it, right? I also recommend, if your child has a particular place setting. Some kids do, some kids don't, right? I don't know. My mother likes to get out her fancy silver, which is way heavier than anything that, I might use. I might take the utensils along that work for my child, right? Oh, plate sections with dividers. I love that, Patty. Yeah. How many kids hate to have things touching each other, right? Bring your own plate, right? Do that. Make sure they're in the quiet corner, right? If they're going to sit and eat with the family. Um, just try to make it as easy for your child and you as possible, right? All right. You next want to really think about blending traditions with flexibility. This is a really big one for me, right? Find out what your child loves. There are lots of things to love about all these holidays coming up. There are lots of things to love. What does your child love? Do they love to go see Santa? But I don't know, are there mall Santas anymore? I feel like there are, but I'm not sure. Um, you know, maybe the mall Santa or whatever is not the place to go, right? Patty and I were just talking before this on, places where there are sensory Santas. I haven't seen much come out yet, but I know they're coming. Pay attention to that. Sign up for that. We will have a Polar Express event on December 14th. I think that's a Saturday, um, where we will have, Santa. So they can come and see Santa there. We're working with another organization, Dave and Buster's, to create breakfast with Santa in a sensory friendly space. There are lots of other places. And I feel like in the next, week or two, we're going to see a lot of those start popping up. So do those kind of things if that's something your child enjoys, right? If your child enjoys some other ritual, do it, right? Um, think about think about how attached you are to the holiday routines that you have, and what of those can you flex to make it easier and more manageable for your child? So in today's world, I think of Christmas and how in my family now, with my if I'm with my nieces and nephews, right? Everybody like rips into their gifts at the same time, right? And I think this is true of a lot of families. Well, when I was growing up, we had what I think of as a far easier sensory time. And that was each person opened one gift at a time. And we spent time, right? So, oh, this came from my sister. I'm going to open it up. And I look, right? And then the next person, and we took breaks. I mean, I remember Christmases where we're like, okay, time for an apple cider break, time for a hot chocolate break, right? Um, do those kind of things. One, it makes the holiday last longer, and it's okay to do a few things on Christmas Eve and a few things on Christmas Day and a few things the day after if you need to. um, what does it matter, right? You'd rather enjoy it, and you'd rather have your family enjoy the time than be all stressed out because of the chaos of gift unwrapping or whatever it is, right? So ask your child what they want to do, right? What would they like? Would they like to open one gift on Christmas Eve? Is that really a bad thing? I mean, a lot of families don't do that, but would that really hurt? Right? Would it take some of the anxiety away? Is it something where the week before Christmas you go to grandma and grandpa's and you open presents just your little family and grandma and grandpa without everybody else? Is that better? Right? Think about those things, accommodate those kind of things, because it will make the holidays easier for you, and it will make it more enjoyable for your child, right? I love involving children in the decision making. I really, really do, because so often they know what they can and cannot handle. And if you are talking about that in a calm way before the holiday, right? Before we're in the middle of it, they might be able to express to you, right? That that this is fun, but this is too much. Space it out, take time. And in the middle of things, if it's too much, take a break. Ask everybody to pause, right? Or if you're with family and like mine, right, everybody's opening gifts at the same time and it becomes overwhelming, it's okay to just say, we're going to excuse ourselves for a few minutes. We'll be back. You're not asking permission. Again, I think that's a really big thing. I don't want anybody to ask for permission because people are going to say, no, 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 stay, right? I want you to be in tune with what you and your child need and to do that. All right. Another really big thing that I think is difficult this time of year is at times, especially when we're really stressed, is the ability to focus on the joy. And I really, really feel strongly that you need to really think about and focus on the joyous parts of it, the fun parts, right? The shared moments, the right. If you have always struggled to go to Thanksgiving with your family, and this time your child does wonderful for 3 hours and then you leave, celebrate that. That was awesome. We got to spend a little bit of time. You did great, right? That is, it's wonderful to be able to do that, right? Don't make anybody feel guilty, and don't feel guilty for it, right? Um, Capture the memories in ways that make sense, right? If I don't know about you all, but I have some families who, um, you know, a picture with Santa is really important. But then I don't know about all you, because sometimes Santa is scary to kids, right? Um, is it necessary to push that? Is it that big of a deal? I don't know, right? You'll have to make that choice. But find ways to bring the joy into it rather than the stress. All right. I'm going to stop now. Patty has these slides, and I think you'll have access to them. There are some toolkits and prep things that I have put in the resources that you can look at. Of course, you're welcome to, reach out to me as well. But what I'd like to do now is really just take a little bit of time and answer your questions. What questions, what thoughts? I'm also really open to hearing your stories. What works? What doesn't work? What you've tried? Yeah, talk to me.
What I can do is I can stop the recording so that if it's a little uncomfortable for anyone that's, with the recording, so they can open up a little bit. So if that's okay. Thank you, Mary Helen, for the uh, we have put the direct link in the chat box towards to get to the presentation. And I'll go ahead and stop the recording at this time, and then we can open it up for, questions, answers, chats, um, continued conversation. But thank you again
Hmm,
for
my pleasure.
putting this together for us. 1 second.